Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna go where people know the people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
We are the ones who don't know what we're fighting for. Give us a gun and send us all off to war. We are the ones who grow up in violent homes. We are the ones who don't know what's right or wrong. I know. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. We are the ones who don't know why we're losing score. Give them a badge so they could send us to the morgue. Yeah, we are the ones who are scared to walk out the door. We are the ones who don't know what we're dying for. I know. We are the ones who are born into war. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones who are born into war. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No. Get off this fucking neck! Love that makes you know it can't fucking breathe! Love that makes you know We are the ones who are born into war. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones who are born into war. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of ImNoBookie, your home for all things combat sports and the place where every armchair quarterback can feel like Ben Bronco. The views and opinions presented on the ImNoBookie channel belong solely to the person expressing them, no one else. If we say it, that means we meant it. That being said, this show does contain adult themes, adult content, and general shit that you shouldn't be letting your kids intake. Be advised, viewer discretion is recommended. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. Boo, it's I'm No Joe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, show where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. Today, as like most days, we have got a glorious panel here ready to break down the shenanigans and get into the shit talk leading us into this weekend's mostly unanticipated UFC Vegas 64 card. But before we get into that disappointing dog shit, how the fuck are you two gentlemen doing this fine evening?
Doing pretty fucking good. I had a good week. Hope you guys have been doing good too.
Fuck yeah. Got almost all of my Halloween shit out of my yard. It's a good week. Got a weekend, and I may be buying some more Halloween shit tomorrow for next year. So there's that possibility. Just saying. It's out there. Because there's some shit on sale. But anyhow, yeah. I mean, speaking of cards, we have something this week, and I'll call it something. Because
It is a
Some
thing.
fights. Yeah, some fights. Yeah.
I can't really call them. Okay, they're fights. But it's like
Technically.
it's like taking the ugly girl home from the bar and making her wear a paper bag. It's that kind of fights.
Yeah,
Doggy
this is the
style.
card you tell your friends about. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, you're literally covering the grenade.
This is the moped of of fight cards. Like, it's fun to ride, but you don't want your friends to see you doing it.
That's right, and I'm still gonna try to pull a wheelie.
That's right. Still want to tear ass. Oh, that being said, in case you did miss it, I did do a What Did I Say show recap this last weekend to give you the breakdown and the rundown of all the ridiculousness that did unfold last weekend. So if you missed any of that, go back and catch up on that once we finish here this evening. But that being said, we do like to start things off around here with a little bit of news and recent events, all the fun little tidbits that have shaken down the pipeline since we saw you fine folks last. And we've got some interesting ones. For the most part, we really just had two big chunk of news fall down for us here. But we'll get into those in just a second here. One thing I do want to mention here for a lot of folks who might not have known, we did get the confirmation that the ONE FC on Prime Video 4 that they are scheduling out has officially had an interesting fighter added to the lineup that fine evening, one Cosmo Alexandre. And for those of you who are not familiar, he is the gentleman who quite literally halted in its place the career of one Super Sage Northcutt by destroying his face to such an extent it took 4 surgeries to put him back together. No joke. This is a bad man, and they are bringing him back in a Muay Thai fight at welterweight of all things. So I expect extreme violence because this man has been sitting on the sidelines for 3 fucking years due to personal issues leading him to not be granted a visa to leave the country. So apparently he has finally, as DC so eloquently put it, got his shit together and is allowed to fly out, and they're going to put him right back in the mix. And I don't get the feeling that Cosmo has taken the last 3 years off and sat on the couch and got soft. I feel like that's a guy who's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and a little bit of a grudge he wants to let loose, and I think that match is going to be goddamn fireworks. So ONE FC on Prime Video 4 just got that much more exciting, in my humble opinion. That being said, one of the larger chunks that we got as far as news went this week was in regards to the UFC 283 card taking place January 21st down in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the first pay-per-view of 2023 and the first international card going back down into Rio in a hot minute now. And they seem to fully understand the importance of making sure this card does not suck because they're already starting to stuff that motherfucker.
The first announcement we got, a very interesting matchup in my opinion. Guram Kutateladze stepping back in, taking on Thiago Moises. In Rio, that's going to be a fucking insane fight. I'm telling you right now. Anywhere in the world, that's an interesting fight. But you put those two down in Rio and let that fucking crowd get going, that's going to be fucking nuts. I'm calling that right now. Then we got confirmation that one of the fights that's kind of been getting bounced around a lot has found itself a home on this Rio card. Jailton Almeida versus Shamil Abraduhimov stepping back in. They have officially moved that card. I believe it's been moved 3 times now. That fight has finally found its home on this Rio card. That again is going to be one that will absolutely benefit from the insanity of a Rio de Janeiro crowd. But then we got, in my opinion, the piece de resistance of those 283 announcements this afternoon, in the form of Ismael Bonfim stepping back in to take on none other than T-Rex himself, Terrence McKinney. That fight, I think, is going to be spectacular. And again, you put it on the first pay-per-view of the year down in Rio, and that crowd is going to be going ape shit. That it's just going to make that fight that much more exciting, in my opinion. It's a good matchup, but then you add the atmosphere and where it's going to be.
Anything with T-Rex, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I'm saying. T-Rex, that's your fucking dude. I'm telling you.
And then I'm excited just to see Ismael getting that kind of a matchup after the Contender Series. It's one of the kids that I actually enjoyed out of the Contender Series this year. It's a hell of a fucking debut.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they're not giving him no slouch.
Rio and then fighting Terrence McKinney. That's good shit, man. This is gonna be a hell of
they're
a
not
fucking
giving him an
fight.
easy way in. They're taking him down to a fucking big show, and they're giving him a big fucking name to test him out. So I think that's going to be fucking super exciting either way that shakes loose. So 283 in Rio is absolutely getting built up very nicely, in my opinion. Excuse me. Then we got an interesting pair that I just found out both of these have been signed for over a week now and just didn't get any kind of push whatsoever in the, I say in air quotes, MMA journalism media coverage at large. And I cannot for the fucking life of me understand why, because both of these fights could single-handedly be a fight night main event, in my opinion. The fact that they are both getting stick in the middle of this fight fucking pay-per-view card and haven't gotten coverage, my mind just went kapsh. So the first fight we're talking about here for the UFC 284 card down in Perth, Australia, February 12th, Parker Porter versus Justin Tafa. Are you fucking kidding me? The epitome of 80s bad guys versus the hometown hero Justin Tafa in Perth, Australia on the fucking pay-per-view card, and you're not going to talk about this? What the actual fuck?
I think they're thinking that is being a walrus slap fight when I don't think that's going to be the case.
No, I don't think that's going to be the case at all whatsoever. Now, granted, when two big men get in the cage, there is always a percentage of a chance it goes walrus slap fight. That's just how it works. It's like when a wrestler steps in and he gets rocked 99% of the time, he's going to go a desperation takedown. So when two big men get in there, I agree, there's always a chance for a walrus slap fight. But with these two big men in particular, god damn it, I see fireworks on the fucking horizon from here.
Fuck yeah.
So then we get the other one, the one that really just blows my goddamn mind, given the situation that's leading up to this fucking fight and the fact that it's being announced in Perth, Australia on the fucking pay-per-view card. Zhang Ming Yang stepping in, taking on Tyson fucking Pedro in Perth, Australia, after the injury-ridden fucking layoff Tyson had and the glorious fucking return he had coming back from that. Now he's fighting on a pay-per-view card at home, and this announcement has been over a week in the ether and no one fucking talked about it? What? If you needed any more reasons to pre-buy 284 in February, this is your Valentine's gift to your motherfucking self. This card is already better than the one we've got next weekend, in my opinion. And we're still 3.5 months out from it, for fuck's sake.
Yep, and at the rate they're adding to that, it's going to be a hell of a stacked card from top to bottom so far.
Oh yeah. They're not, the UFC is not fucking around. They know next year has already got international fights booked all over the fucking place. The first quarter of next year, they've got like 6 international fucking cards crammed in already so far. They understand the importance of every one of these overseas locations, and they are not wasting any of these opportunities so far. So unless the MMA gods are just really feeling exquisitely fucking cruel between now and then, or we do something extremely fucking egregious and deserve to get all this shit poured back on us, we have got some great pay-per-views already lining up for 2023 as of now. That being said, that brings us to the not quite as exciting, but still as relevant section of the news that we've got for this particular week. Excuse me. The first one, if you watched the fight, or even if you watched a lot of the highlights or the replays of the fights from a couple weeks ago, you will see that Jun-Young Park, when he got his victory, immediately turned to his team, who was already celebrating on the fence, and made a fucking a calm down motion, and shushed everybody, and put his fucking hands down, and did not celebrate, did not gloat about the win, did not want to be happy. And a lot of people took that as, oh, you know, he's humble in defeat and he's humble in victory, and that's cool. Excuse me. And then we got the official announcement as to why. This wasn't about him. This wasn't about being humble in victory and humble in defeat. This was because, for those of you who didn't hear, there was an incident in Seoul, South Korea at a Halloween party where 100-something people were unfortunately trampled to death. Hundreds of others are still in the hospital recovering with serious life-threatening injuries. It was a big deal, and he did not want to try and take away from the seriousness of that situation by celebrating his own personal victory. So fucking hats off to the Iron Turtle. As if you needed another reason to root for a badass dude like Jun-Young Park, then you find out that even in legitimately his moment, he did not think of himself and would not let his team celebrate his victory, because it's more important to keep those folks in the forefront of our minds and in our thoughts. So absolutely, and obviously our thoughts absolutely go out to the folks involved in that and everyone whose family is involved in that. But just extra tip of the fucking cap to the Iron Turtle for being a beautiful example of why I personally love mixed martial arts so much, because even in a moment where he should have had every right to celebrate and go ape shit and just live in that moment of fucking celebration, he had the forethought to just suppress that, calm his team down, and keep that in the mind. So fucking A, Jun-Young Park.
Absolutely great human being.
Yeah, that's another one of those that I did not see a lot of the quote unquote MMA media at large talking about. And if anyone should get a little bit of extra shine, I would say, coming off of a situation as fucking grim as that, it would be the guy who took his moment to keep that important to folks who didn't know, or folks who might have forgotten. So fucking A, Iron Turtle, you're a bad motherfucker, and I will keep on keeping on rooting on that goddamn train, even if I'm the only one. I don't give a fuck. Choo choo, bitch. So that being said, excuse me, the last story I've got here today We actually talked about, Lucas and I actually talked about this, I think it was 3 days ago now. The Twitter account UFC Roster Watch. Excuse me. Fuck. Excuse me. See, we do this live. The Twitter account UFC Roster Watch is kind of infamous at this point for, I think the best way I've seen it described as spam requesting the UFC's online active fighter database for any changes input into the system and then publishing those changes. The only issue with that is that it's literally just checking a database for ones and zeros. Is the name there or is it not there anymore? If it's not there, report it. If it's there, go on. That doesn't take into consideration the fact that fighters could literally be in negotiations. Fighter could be in free agency and waiting to re-sign. What that just means is that a fighter is no longer currently on an active UFC contract. That being said, Roster Watch was very early to catch what some people are referring to as a late season dump of UFC fighters. We got word that Jason Witt had officially retired from MMA, and essentially in the same press release got word from the UFC Roster Watch account that 11 other fighters had also been released or no longer were active on the UFC roster status. So we know for a fact that one of those names is Jason Witt because he did officially, in fact, retire from MMA. A little bit more ironically, I would say, is another one that not a lot of people might be aware of. Askar Askarov is having some health issues and asked for his UFC release and was granted it. He is officially no longer a UFC active fighter, has not officially retired from MMA, but said that he is indefinitely on hold. He has some serious personal health issue, or some serious health issues he's dealing with, and wants to keep the extent of them personal. But obviously, another one, in our fucking thoughts, clearly. But the list of all the fighters that have officially dropped off of the UFC roster as of right now: Askar Askarov, Misha Serkinov, which we had a feeling after the last loss, Luis Cochise, again after the last loss, we had a feeling, Nick Maximoff, a little surprising but not really surprising, Magomed Mustaev, kind of surprising but not terribly, Charlie Ontiveros, 0-3 run, no, not really surprising, Cameron Van Camp, 0-2, not surprising, Jesse Ronson. I will say the only reason that him getting cut surprised me is because they let him go 0-5 before they fucking cut him. So that one definitely deserves to be on there. Darian Weeks, 0-3. I get it. But UFC is clearly cleaning house, and a couple of those names are contender series or relatively newer guys. Cochise, 0-2 for fuck's sake. Ontiveros, 0-5. Van Camp, 0-2. Like, some of these newer guys are not getting the lengthier exception or trial period, if you will, that we have seen some of the more seasoned veterans may have got in the early days, because at this point, we've got a revolving door situation. There are literally 30 people waiting in line for every one getting kicked out the door, fighting to get back in to take their place. So at this point, you're not getting to go 0-7 like Smiling Sam anymore. You fuck around, you find out, as it were. So obviously, I think there are several names on that list who very well could go back to an LFA or an FAC or a local circuit, put together a good, half a dozen good fight string and get themselves back. We've seen it happen several fucking times. There have been several fighters, even on recent cards, that are on their second and even third strings with the UFC. So it is absolutely possible. But at the same time, some of those guys just showed that they weren't ready at all and aren't going to be on that level. So best of luck to those fine folks.
You know, with big cuts like that, I always think like this. If your roster wasn't so goddamn big, we didn't have fights every fucking week. Like, if you go back, let's say 2.5 years, we didn't have fights. No, let's go a little farther than that. Let's go back to like 2019. We weren't consistently having fights every fucking weekend. That did not happen until the Backstreet Boys reunion tour decided to take hold, and they're like, oh, fuck, we got to play catch up.
Right.
We used to maybe get 2 cards a month if we were lucky. It was usually a fight night here and one pay-per-view per month. You're usually getting two fight cards a month, which, to be honest, I was perfectly all right with. But then they increased the size of their roster, so we get a lot more of these cards that we're going to talk about tonight, which are, well, to say the least, shit. So, of course, it's easy to trim the fat, as it were, but you're literally trimming the fat off a fucking round steak that had no fucking fat to begin with. That's the problem. Is you had a cheap piece of fucking meat, you're just cutting the piece up. You may as well just make fucking hamburger out of it, get rid of all of the shit. Because there is a bunch of it in the UFC still that needs to be removed. And go back to 2 cards a month. I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong. I love being able to watch fights every weekend. But at the same time, I would much rather have them be meaningful fights.
Right.
And by meaningful, I mean things that are going to progress the division, or see the guys that actually look like they have a chance of going somewhere, like the T-Rexes and things like that. There's not a lot of that anymore. I mean, we're literally grasping at straws a lot of weekends trying to go, oh, this could be a decent fight. Nah. It's starting, they're starting to water the pool down to where it's almost boxing-esque.
Yep. No, we went from a point where if you got 3 fight cards, period, in a month, that was a big month. And you knew there were a lot of very important fights that had to get made. And there were a bunch of fights that were going to get crammed into one card. There was going to be one in the middle that was going to be like a 9-fight card or a 10-fight card. And then you were going to get a pay-per-view that was going to get a 5-fight early prelim card and a 5-fight early, or a fucking 5-fight prelim card, and then a 6-fight main card. And that motherfucker was going to be 7 hours long, but they were all going to be great fights. And you were not even remotely worried about that 1 week you were going to get off a month, or the 2 weeks you would get off a month where there was no MMA. Whereas we're at a point now where we go 7-8 weeks in a row without getting a weekend off. And we say during, I would say, probably 40 to 50% of those weeks that none of these fights had to be made this weekend. We could have absolutely gone the entire week without a card this weekend. You could have shuffled some of these around. Some of them don't even need to actually be fights. We could take more breaks than we are. But when you've got, I think Dana White said in an interview last week, they're up to like 1,300 fighters on the active UFC roster list now. Like, you have to contractually offer all of them 3 fights a year at minimum. You don't have time to not have fights anymore. And that absolutely comes with a watering down of the product to a certain degree, and that kind of sucks.
You're paying for a milkshake and you're getting fucking milk blended with ice.
Right. I don't put bourbon in there or nothing.
No, not even a splash of fucking vanilla.
Right. But that is what I have got for news this fucking week. Do either of you gentlemen have anything that I might have missed this week?
Nah.
I got a couple things. So Alex Pereira's sister's going to be making her MMA debut, the LFA 147 card. I thought that was pretty interesting because, especially if he winds up beating Izzy, you might see her going to the UFC someday.
Right.
They might look at her a little bit more if he keeps his ass up near that title spot. Then fucking Contender Series guy I'm excited about. The Yusaku Kinoshita kid. He's going to be making his debut day before my birthday, February 4th. He's going to be fighting Adam Fugget, or Fugit. I like saying Fugget. But yeah, it's cool. He'll be making his debut pretty quickly. And then an end of the year fight that I was excited about, Alex Carceres versus Julian Erosa. Two dudes that I enjoy. I think they're two decent fighters, and it'll be, a decent fight to give us for the end of the year card.
Nice. Hell yeah. Absolutely. I can be down with that. So, with that being said, I realize that a good percentage of the folks who tune into the show are what I affectionately refer to as rabid hardcore old guys like myself and Galti here, folks who've been watching MMA and combat sports in general for 10, 15, 20 fucking years like some of us has. And with tuning into combat sports as much as some of us do, there gets to a point where you don't care about anybody until they get to a certain level. And the problem is in developing that sort of desensitization, the callous almost, if you will, you kind of lose a little bit of that eye, if you will, for some of the up and comers, the new folks, if you get a little bit crotchety in the who you actually pay attention to. And luckily for us, we are in touch with the youths. We are hip kids. We know somebody who is. So this is the point in the show where us old guys get to sit back and learn a little bit, a thing we like to affectionately refer to as slows, cans, and contenders, where we've got our fellow youth here to help keep us up to date on all the potential up and comers.
All right. So I'll get this out of the way first. The contender of this week is going down tonight. Callum motherfucking Walsh, the king himself, is getting his, I think, fifth. I think he's 4-0. I could be wrong. He might be 5-0, but I think this is his fifth boxing match professionally. And he's fighting a guy that's 13-1. So it's pretty impressive. This is the one contender, and then the rest of this series might be enjoyable for all of you older guys because it's going to be full of fucking cans. It's going to be fun to talk about. So with the UFC this weekend, we get a good couple cans from the contender series, right? Candelario, Carlos Candelario, and Jake Hadley. This fight towards the beginning of the card, I'm just not that excited about it. Whenever Hadley won on the contender series, I kind of had some excitement for him. Candelario, not so much. He won his contract off a loss. So that's the biggest thing. You can't be excited about him. They both lost their debut. Candelario lost to Tatsuro Ataria. He's a good prospect. I like him, but it's just, this is a bad fight. So some guys from the contender series will probably be seeing one of them get cut. Whichever guy doesn't win this fight, he'll probably be next on that chopping block that we saw this week. And then I've got the Shamrock card this week. Luckily, we're not going to St. Louis, right? Because for the most part, it's full of cans. I'll still try to give it some light because it's a local event. A lot of Missouri guys. And you try to root for everybody, and you always give everybody respect for getting into combat sports and shit. But we got some cans on this card. Started off with Trayvon Crawford, who'll be fighting Matt Tinker. This is going to be a welterweight bout, and it's a kickboxing fight. It's not an MMA bout. And the biggest reason I say this guy's a can. Trayvon Crawford, earlier this year in May, lost to our guy, Tyson Hicks, from our gym, Dancing Bear Martial Arts. He'll be fighting later on this year, December, on the 342 card, the fucking card that'll be a little bit fire, right? They're saving it for the end of the year. They're saving the good shit for the end of the year. But Tyson Hicks beat him back in May, and Trayvon Crawford is 3-6 in his career. So, they're giving him a tune-up, right? He's doing a kickboxing match instead of an MMA match because they need to give this guy a little experience before he takes his 7th fucking loss and he's 3-7. That's how I look at this. And he's fighting a guy that's 2-0 as an amateur. He's making his pro debut. So, we don't know shit of what we're going to see out of this kid, Matt Tinker. He only fought 2 amateur fights. He's getting the professional. He did finish those 2 amateur fights, but a lot of guys finish their first couple fights amateur wise. So we'll see what we get out of this. But it's a kickboxing fight, like I said. It's not like this kid is getting his first pro MMA bout. He's fought a couple fights amateur wise. I mean, that's how bad Trayvon Crawford is, in my opinion. You're getting an amateur MMA fighter for a kickboxing fight. So we're throwing that first can fight out here. We've got a fight on the card that's somewhat decent. Jordan Kottman will be facing Isaac Dancy. This is a lightweight bout. Kottman is 4-1, Dancy 7-2. And this is an amateur bout. It's not a pro bout, but it's for a belt. It's for the amateur lightweight belt for the Shamrock title. Kottman lost his only fight back in April, but he's got a few finishes in his career, and Dancy as well. He's gotten quite a few finishes, so this could be an exciting fight out of the card full of cans. We've got another big can fight. Austin Midkiff, he's coming in at 1-2, a professional record. He did win a kickboxing match back in July. Last December, he won his last MMA bout, a first-round guillotine, but that was his only win. His first couple MMA fights, he lost. The last one back last year, he won by submission. And then he got himself a kickboxing fight back this summer, tuning him up before this. So he might break himself even. It takes a loss, you're full can. You might be less of a can if you get the 2-2. That's how I look at this. He's fighting a guy, Derek Scott. He's 3-1. He lost his last fight back in June by decision, and then all 3 of his wins have come to finish. 2 of them in the first round. So I feel like Scott, he's going to get this win over Midkiff. He's going to prove Midkiff's a can. The only thing that worries me a little bit about Scott, he only fights normally 1 time a year. This will be his second fight this year, but the past few years before, he only takes 1 fight a year. Then you got the main event. I mean, this is a main event. You got cans here. 11-10, Corey Alexander facing Jordan Howard, 11-5. This is a pro MMA bout for your main event. I mean, what are you doing, Shamrock? An 11-10 guy. He did win his last 2 by finish, but Corey Alexander with an 11-10. He's a very back and forth fighter. He had 2 fight win streak, and he got finishes in the both. I guess that's why they put him in the main event. Jordan Howard, he used to fight for Bellator, so I mean, there's that. He's got a better record at 11-5, and he used to fight for Bellator. So I mean, but then you gotta think, well, you're not fighting for Bellator anymore. You had to come back down to Shamrock. So he lost a couple fights, and Bellator let him go. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if we get a finish in it. Nothing too exciting though. The co-main event, maybe another exciting fight. Josh Augustine coming in at 6-2. He'll be facing Izzy William, who's 5-4. Izzy William, the only thing that bothers me, he lost to Jordan Levitt back in February 2020. So this guy, he's been a back and forth fighter his whole career. If you could have been a little bit more solid, you could have been in the UFC just on that fact alone. He lost to Jordan Levitt, a guy who's not too great of a fighter, but he's in the UFC, right? But Josh Augustine, he's got quite a few finishes in his career. He's won his last 2 fights by technical knockout. He had a first-round TKO back in January, and then just in the summer, September, into the summer. He just fought in September. He had a round 2 technical knockout. So Augustine will probably get us a nice finish, I would think. That's the exciting aspect of the co-main event. And then finish this off, the last can aspect. There'll be an amateur bout towards the beginning of the card. Cody McGehee is 3-1. His only loss is by decision back in May. And then he's got finishes other than that. It's three wins or finishes. He lost by a decision. We'll be facing a guy named Hunter Vaughn, coming in at 6-3. The first couple fights he had as an amateur, he got a finish, and then all three of his losses, he's been finished. All of his wins since his first two been decision. This guy is definitely a can, and definitely had to bring this up because me and Vincent went to school with this kid when we were kids back in middle school. This was the jackass in middle school, right? The school bully that liked to try to give people shit, played football and everything, just like I did in middle school. Was one of the biggest douchebags in the world. I'm sure he hasn't grown to be any nicer. I'll give him the respect where it's due, that he's done the fucking work to be able to get in MMA and be 6-3. And if he wins this fight by another shitty decision, then you're 7-3. But if I was to ever have a call out, I know I got a lot of work to do to get to my debut, and he's way farther ahead. But I'd love to fight his ass to get that shit back. He was such a jackass when we were kids. Sure, he's still a dick, and he's a shit fighter. I feel like I could knock him out today, even though I know I got a lot of work to do, and this guy's got some experience. I remember him from school. He's a piece of shit. Hunter Vaughn. I hope he gets his ass knocked out by this kid that's 3-1. It'll be a good time just for that. Just the personal experience. Hope he gets knocked out because then I'll make it easier for me to get him for my debut potentially next year. Just like me talking shit. That's why we're bringing it on the podcast here, and we'll bring it on tomorrow on the Slow Bake and Contemplate podcast. Fuck Hunter Vaughn. Let's get it on. You, me, next fucking year. I'd love that. Someday, though, right? If not then, someday. The first fucking call out. Maybe the only one until I actually get some wins. But I thought that'd be fun. Dude's totally a can, and I know I can fucking whoop his ass. I could have whooped his ass when we were kids. It's just, I'll be honest, I was shy. You know, I didn't have a lot of confidence, pussy. Now that I've grown into myself, you know, let me keep getting some training. I'll whoop his ass. That's all I got for the Slow's Cans segment this week. We'll just say Slow's Cans segment. Slow's Cans and Callum Walsh.
Good shit. Good shit. Thank you very much, sir. Always much appreciated. So, before we move on to the next segment, we are legally obligated to mention that the I'm No Joe podcast and its affiliates are not endorsed or supported in any way, shape, or fashion by Tapology.com or its subsidiaries. We do, however, take full advantage of a free service that they offer where you can make an account and make picks on fights like we often do here. We have taken advantage of that ability, created a group on Tapology.com called ImNoBookie, all one word, or Group 965, however you need to search it. You are free to join, make your picks, and literally go head-to-head against us. That being said, we like to use that segment to bring us, or excuse me, that service rather, to bring us into this segment that we lovingly refer to as Tapology with TJ.
So, now that I'm back to regular picking, although this week might throw that off because this card is so fucking trash that I don't want to make picks. So there may be that. I'll probably pick just to fucking do it, but I'm probably what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pick the entire on Tapology. They give them to you side by side. I'm just going to pick all of one side, I think, and see what happens. Just because that's how I feel about this. I'm gonna look them all over and take my best guess. And you know what? Chances are I'll probably get all of those motherfuckers right because this card is fucking weird.
I was going to say, as somebody who literally waits until Thursday to make my picks before the show, just in case something happens with one of the fighters between Monday and now, looking at how they have them listed, I can absolutely see you just going straight, take it down one side and doing pretty fucking well, realistically.
Yeah, it's a weird fucking card. But we're not going to start with this. We're going to start with last week. So we're going to go back to Fight Night, Cater versus Arnold Allen. And before I even get into that, I know I was not here for the recap show, but I'm so sick and fucking tired of seeing main events stopped due to fucking unforeseen injuries. What are we at, like 4 this year? And we've had 11 in like the past, I think they said 5 years, and 4 of them have come this fucking year.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
Alone, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. But anyhow, we're gonna start right from the top, and to the surprise of fucking everybody, Tim comes out of fucking nowhere to take it with a wild fucking set of picks, a couple of perfect to semi-perfects. He got 9 of the 11 correct. Pretty goddamn good. Good on you, Tim. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. And right in behind that, coming in fucking hot, got myself and my fucking neighbor, River Tour here, Don, fucking the 390 spot. And not far behind us to not be missed here, you got Christian coming in at a solid 340. And just barely behind him, missed him by one semi-perfect fucking pick. He got Meter himself at a 325. That extra 15 points on win semi-perfect would have been all he fucking needed to be tied. But no. And who do we see down here at the bottom? Your brother, man. He tripped over his fucking dick this week. Bad. 250. Less than 50% right on his picks. Christian's brother fucking tripped over his dick. But what's worse than tripping over your dick?
I was gonna say
is not making picks at all. So our boy Lucas out there, I know he's fucking watching. This is just back-to-back weeks, if I'm not mistaken. No fucking missing picks. Pull your head out of your fourth point of contact. In military lingo, that means your ass, and make some goddamn picks. Back-to-back weeks is unacceptable. At least mine, I had a fucking reason behind it. Card was shit, and I was proving a point that I could come right back and fucking take over, just like I did. So, but anyhow, those are this week's picks. And also, Don, if you're listening, would you tell your son to make some fucking picks? Because I can't call his fucking name if he doesn't make picks. He hasn't made picks in like 4 weeks. And I know that was some weird shit going on there, so yeah, I get it. But still, give him help. But yeah, so remember, next week or this week, you have until like an hour before the fucking card starts, I think.
I think it's noon central. You have to have your picks turned in by Saturday.
Yeah. So you've got another day and 12 hours at least. So get your picks in. You know who you are. If you need to do it right after the show is done because you're watching currently, wink, wink, please feel free to do so. Or if you think you can get it done tomorrow while the kids are at school again. For those of you listening, there was a wink, wink there. You just didn't see it. Yeah, get them in. I want to be able to talk shit on who trips over the dick. Who knows? If I take the all right method or the all left method, it might be me. And that'll be fun to call myself out again. I enjoy that. But yeah, those are the results for last week. So congratulations to the blind squirrel finding his nut and getting it done over there, Tim. The rest of us will all look on and let you enjoy your victory lap. Although the one thing I will say is I think the reason why Tim did so well is because he felt shorted after last week's episode of the pit. He was a little pissed at the way that ended up. So I think he came back to say, you know, fuck you guys. Nah, fuck you. Nah, fuck you. That's exactly what that was.
Yeah, it almost feels like he didn't do enough homework. He didn't think he had to do that much homework for the pit. And then when the pit ended the way that it did, he was like, I'll show these cocksuckers. And then like dove into the books like that bookworm with a fucking chip on his shoulder that's going to ace the test just because fuck you. That's why. And then we got this cards picks.
What happened? I didn't turn in my homework all fucking year. But I'm going to prove you guys that I did learn all this shit.
Right. 98's the final.
Yeah, that's how I felt, man. Once we saw the picks come through, I'm like, what in the fuck? Where was he at on the fucking podcast?
Yeah.
I almost got it. If it wasn't for one stat, I would have had his ass in the 4th round, first time ever, right?
It was fucking wild, you know.
And then he fucking blows everybody out the water with the picks, other than TJ.
Yeah, hey, don't forget Don. Don was tied with me. We were at fucking 390 apiece. So, hey, but yeah, overall, it was. I think it was that was kind of a backhanded fuck you slap, is what that was. Which I'm not mad about. I'm really not.
No, that's all I said. That was well earned for damn sure.
Yeah. So there you have it. Don't forget to get your picks in. We'll go over them again next week. So we'll move on to this week's odds for what they've got right now. We're going to start right from the bottom. The one fight that they don't have odds on yet: Tamiris Vidal and Ramona Pascual. No odds on that currently, which makes sense because, to be honest, neither of them are worth making odds for. And there is one on the undercard? Yep, on the undercard. I think it's the largest one on this because we're pretty close to 50-50 on most of these, but there's one on the undercard that stands out as the biggest odds difference on the entire card, and it makes 100% fucking sense. So we're skipping up a bit here. We're going straight to Miranda Maverick and Shayna Young. Miranda Maverick at a minus 600 to a plus 450 Young. Holy shit. Don't bet on Young. Don't bet on Young as an underdog here. I'm telling you, it's a bad fucking idea. Miranda Maverick had one setback. One. And she's right back to being that fucking beast we know she is. Now that she's had that setback, gave her a chance to shore up those holes in the game, she's going to be fucking dangerous in the flyweight division. Say, give her another year or two. You're going to see her with a good rank and possibly pushing towards a title fight.
Yeah, she's one of those that they absolutely just literally pushed too far, too fast. She had one little hookup and everybody was like, oh, she's done. Have you not seen everything else she's fucking done? This, I feel, is probably one of the most accurate Vegas odds that we've seen them give out in a long time. Minus 600 to plus 450 absolutely feels correct for this fight.
Good God, yeah. Hey, speaking now, going back to the rest of this undercard odds, you got a plus 215, minus 255 to Candelero and Hadley, and that's fucking, just as I said, it's a Candelero plus 215, Hadley minus 255. Makes sense. Kind of fucking flip-flopper. You got the Ludwig and Johnny here at a plus 190 and a minus 225. Another pretty close to semi-coin flip. You're not going to make any money off these fights. And then you go to Viana, excuse me, and Frey. Fucking, I can't fucking pronounce goddamn those names. But that's literally a fucking coin flip, a minus 125 and a plus 105 right across the board. And then you come into Mario Batista, Benito Lopez. Fucking another basic coin flip, although it's getting a little closer to, you're getting pretty close to not quite a coin flip. And Batista having a minus 285. Once you get to about that minus 300, that's where I no longer consider them a coin flip odds. But minus 285 and a plus 240, still pretty close on could be a coin flip. You can make some money off those fights. What's funny, I don't know if I was just looking in the wrong spots, but I couldn't find anything on fucking Derek Minor and fucking Nuremberg, which is fucking wild.
No, I can't either. I just looked because the UFC website doesn't have it, so I looked to see if I could find them anywhere else. I can't find odds for that fight anywhere.
And here's a crazy one that I really don't think the odds are right on. Grant Dawson and Mark Madsen. They have Dawson as a minus 215 favorite over Mark Madsen. Madsen is a fucking killer wrestler. I think everybody forgets that. He has had a couple of hiccups. I don't think Dawson's that fucking great to where it should be a coin flip. To be honest, I think they have the odds backwards. I can see Madsen taking this one. This is one where I would say go ahead and bet on Madsen, even though it's still pretty close to a coin flip at a minus 215 and a plus 185. But a lot of people show Mark Madsen short. They sell him very short. Then you got Tahir and Nate over here coming in flyweight at a minus 210 and a plus 180. Another fucking coin flip. Not surprised. And then got another fucking coin flip in Shea Sherman, who just can't seem to show up regularly, and Josh Parisian. Another one. Can't seem to show up regularly. And I think this one ends in a walrus slap fight. So the minus 130 plus 110 makes 100% sense. Now, coming into the co-main event here, fucking Neil Magny and D-Rod. Minus 115 and a minus 105. It's the epitome of a coin flip. They're both considered favorites. as far as the betting, and it makes sense except for the fact that I don't think Magny's going to be able to handle D-Rod. D-Rod's gotten progressively better over the last couple of years, where Magny, in my opinion, is still a little stagnant. So that one is that's a pick'em fight. That's, to be honest, that's a good one to throw in a parlay. So that way you're picking 3 or 4 fights, and hopefully all of them are right. That'd be a good one. Then you come down to the main event, and I say main event loosely because I don't look at this as a main event. This is like the main event of the prelims card, but somehow got stacked into a main event. Rodriguez and Lemos. Minus 210 for Rodriguez and a plus 180 for Lemos, which I think they are selling Lemos short. She's only lost to Andrade lately. So, and then Rodriguez, although I'm not a fan, I also give her credit because, well, she did take out one Mackenzie Dern, and I can't stand that bitch. So, there's your odds for this week. So make your picks wisely. Don't forget to pick them. We'll be going over them next week. Feel free to join the group. ImNoBookie or whatever the fucking, I forget the number. What is it, 963 or some I better not give you a number. Just look for ImNoBookie on Tapology. You'll find us. We'll add you in. Yeah. Should be an interesting week. Like I said, you could basically pick down one side of the card. And to be honest, if I pick down the side of the card the way that the UFC website has it set up, I'm pretty confident, with the exception of the Miranda Maverick fight, that I would have everything fucking right. Or get pretty goddamn close. Because, to be honest, that's how it looks.
Let me see.
Because, to be honest, I'll take Lemos over Rodriguez. I'll take D-Rod over Magny. Parisian over Sherman. Yeah, I would take all those. There's a few of them. If I went straight down the right side of the UFC's website, you very well could get all of those right.
Yeah, no, they've got it. It looks like it's listed straight up same way the UFC website has it.
Well, there you go. And even if you go to the left side, you wouldn't be far off, because Neil Magny has been problems for people before. So I could see that. And the way Rodriguez has handled people lately, she could take out Lemos. Do I see that happening? No, but, it's a possibility. So you could go left or right here the whole way down the card, and you'd probably do pretty fucking well this week. I'm not telling you to do that on Tapology, but, the option's out there for you.
That, and for those of you who aren't aware, during Saturday's, we start during the premier prelim fight, and then during the entirety of the main card itself for the UFC, I broadcast here on the ImNoJoe YouTube channel what I like to refer to as the Pick'em Update stream. I put out a live, real-time updating slideshow of all of our picks from the group as the fights are playing out, set to some of the dulcet tones of our friends Eddie and the Arsons for your lovely ear holes as well. So feel free to tune in during the main card of any UFC event for the Pick'em Update stream of our Tapology group. And if you would like your picks featured on those update streams, when you make your picks on Tapology, it will actually give you an HTML PHP code. Copy that link, shoot it to me in a DM, or shoot it to one of us in a DM somehow, get it to somebody, we will get it put in there. You can see your picks Saturdays during the fights right alongside ours. That being said, this will be the point where folks who are only listening to the show might not know, but for the folks tuned in live Thursday night on youtube.com/ImNoJoe, you will know, due to the death-defying gift that rolls across the screen, that this is the point where the friendly part of the show gets escorted out the door and the niceness gets dialed the fuck back just a little bit. This is the point, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, where we bring in a thing that we like to refer affectionately as the pit. This is the point where we bring things to a little bit more of a competitive aspect, keeping it on the lighter and friendlier side. But this is the point where we put one contestant against the other in sheer MMA Thunderdome style combat. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Unfortunately, life happens and we didn't get, once again, the thing that we wanted to get. But luckily for us, we prepare for just such an occasion, and we are indeed still going to have to do the damn thing. That being said, we have a much anticipated rematch on the horizon this glorious evening. One Golf Tee versus Slow Bake here for your entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentlemen, are you boys ready for some pit action?
I was fucking born for this.
As was I. I'm always ready. That's why I'm the fill-in every time somebody can't show up. I'm the short notice fighter.
Absolutely, absolutely. The show's very own Donald Cerrone. So, that being said, being as how we were gracious enough to get Christian to step in on short notice, we are going to give him champion's prerogative here and go with him first to kick things off. So, Brother Christian, as we like to start things off around here on any fight card, no matter it a pay-per-view or a fight night, inevitably there is one fight that no one seems to be talking about and absolutely should be. The fight that when it comes on, you will literally make sure anyone in earshot gets their ass in front of the monitor to see the gloriousness. A fight that we like to refer to around here as the matchup, if you will. So if there was one fight on this card that you could personally give that extra little rub to and get folks' attention to ahead of the time, what fight is that going to be for you, sir?
All right. So I've heard it being talked about like normal. This is what normally happens with a lot of these really what I feel like are good fights, or what we would, well, this isn't a great card. We don't have a lot of great fights, but this is a good fight on this card. Only podcasts seem to talk about it, similar to us, right? A lot of the bigger media sources don't ever seem to talk about the fights, try to hype it up, especially the promotion. Mario Batista versus Benito Lopez, in my opinion, is the underhyped fight on this card this week, because I feel like this is the best fight of the prelims. Could wind up being fight of the night in general. We definitely are going to fucking see an exciting fight. The only thing I'll say is Batista hasn't fought for just about 3 years now. We'll see how he can come off of that. But he's one of those guys, I don't think he's been sitting around on the couch eating potato chips. Yeah, it's nice to see him fucking back. Benito Lopez is a pretty exciting fighter, too. There's a lot of finish potential with these guys. Definitely an exciting fucking fight for a card that's not going to be exciting at all. And I haven't heard anybody talking about it. You know, Mike Heck, us. So I had to give that a shout out. It's definitely been a fucking underhyped fight for this card. Has the potential to be one of the best. And there's definitely only a few fights on this card that's even exciting to begin with. So throw that out there.
I agree. And as our colleagues over across the pond on the MMA fighting podcast networks will also attest, bantamweight underdogs have yet to disappoint in the year 2022, and this fight just happens to have a bantamweight underdog in the form of Benito Lopez coming off the shelf. So I think if nothing else, that should give folks an indication that there's potential for fireworks in that match. I agree with you absolutely. So that being said, that'll bring us back across the octagon, as it were here. Golf Tee, in every card we see, whether it's UFC, Bellator, One, Ryzen, Submission Underground, doesn't matter. There's always one fight that seems to be overlooked by the media, the one that we like to refer to as the "Hey, Mom, get in here" fight. So if you've got neighbors within earshot and they're not paying attention for some reason, what fight on this card are you going to start wrangling strangers to get them to watch?
If I'm going to wrangle strangers to watch something on this card, it's going to be one that I think that fighters don't get enough credit in. There's a few of them that are getting the exact credit that they deserve, which is none. But there is one fight that I see that neither one of them are really getting the necessary shine that they deserve. That being Grant Dawson and Mark Madsen. Dawson has been on an absolute fucking tear. He's won every fight except for one, and that's because it was a majority fucking draw 2 fights ago. Madsen is the same way. He's 4 fights into his UFC career, 4 fucking wins. And now, I'm not saying either one of these guys are world breakers, but they're both have a lot of shine, and they're getting not as much shine as they fucking deserve. They both have a ton of fucking potential here. Madsen, great fucking wrestler. I mean, he went the fucking distance with goddamn Clay Guida at Guida's pace and won. That's fucking impressive. There's not a lot of fighters out there that can keep that pace that long. Madsen is one of them. Dawson, on the other hand, he's just been steamrolling through people, with the exception of that one majority draw fight. I'm saying there's a potential for fucking fireworks here. Not to mention, you're going to get to see 2 guys that have a lot of great potential just go fucking head to head here. And somebody's going to end up getting their shine and due finally in this fight, I think.
I'm absolutely inclined to agree. That fight for me absolutely has a whole lot of potential for fireworks. The only diminish I would put it all on that fight is the fact that it was originally supposed to be Drakkar Klose versus Marco Madsen, because Drakkar Klose specifically called out Marco Madsen and said that he could hang with that Olympic caliber wrestling. That fight I was very excited to see. I will say I will consider Grant Dawson an absolutely acceptable replacement. It just changes the caliber of the fight a little bit, in my opinion. And I also feel like the fact that Drakkar got snapped out of it and Grant Dawson kind of got thrust in on shorter notice did definitely diminish a little bit of that MMA journalism coverage for what this fight could have potentially been.
Fuck yeah.
And I have to say, the fact that Benito Lopez is coming back after almost 3 years and is getting no fucking love for that is a valid point as well. Both of you guys make valid points here. But in this situation, I think I have to give the point for round 1 to Golf T. I 100% agree. Bantamweight unders fucking rarely disappoint in 2022, and that fight, I agree 100%, is great. But the fact that we have a legitimate fucking Olympic wrestler and Mark Madsen on the main card getting 0 press coverage bakes my fucking potato. I don't.
Dude,
I can't even.
he's so undervalued. Like, his fucking wrestling skills are off the charts. There's a reason why he was able to go that long with fucking Guida. That's that wrestler in him, man. I'm telling you. He's
'Cause everybody knows
undervalued.
Guida puts a pace on you that if you can't hang, we'll find out real goddamn quick. And Madsen was there start to fucking finish, fucking tit for tat with him. So that says something unto itself. I absolutely agree.
I also can't argue with that one because, lightweight is just better than the bantamweight division. I know some people try to argue that point. Some people that aren't too intelligent, like Jed Meshew and shit like that. But lightweight's better. So, yeah.
Jed Meshew is in the midst of his own Conor McGregor unretirement at the moment. So, I mean, you got to feel for a guy that confused right now. But no, I agree. That being said, though, that will bring us to round 2, where we like to proverbially flip that coin, if you will. So, Golf T, we will start with you here. And in the sense of flipping the proverbial coin, in round 2, we like to ask on every fight card, as it were, there is always one antithesis to the "Hey Mo, get in here," where there's one fight that every single MMA journalist with a microphone in front of their face will not shut up about this one fight, and there's no fucking reason that fight should be getting as much love. The overhyped fight of the night, if you will. So on this UFC 64 card, sir, which overhyped fight of the night are you calling?
I can tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to take the lowest hanging fruit out there in Mariana Rodriguez and Amanda Lemos. That's not worth it. We already know that. So, where we're going to go with this one, that I've heard way more about than I think I should have. And it's going to sound a little fucking off. But the fucking Random Maverick and Shinny Young. I've heard more about that with Random Maverick and her whole fucking being back on her game than is necessary. I don't want to throw shade at her. I think she deserves the credit, but she's also not back up to where they were trying to push her to. So I think they've overcovered her a little bit, and unfortunately, Shane Young is just another stepping stone for her. So she's getting a little extra press too. Which, to be honest, if you're not going to tune into a fight, you can go ahead and skip this one because we already know the outcome. Maverick wins. That's all there is to it. So yeah, it's got a little more press than this need be.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely inclined to agree with you there. I have seen at least a half a dozen reports this week alone on this fight, and with it being possibly the biggest odds differential on the card, that would, in my opinion, be the only reason to give it any shine on a show. But I've seen people just absolutely dribbling over it, and I don't get it either. So who knows? That being said, though, that'll bring us back across the octagon, as it were, here to the Brother Christian. So, Brother Slowbake here, on this particular card, as with every card, the antithesis to the, hey, Ma, get in here! We've always got one fight that the journalists in the MMA world just won't shut the fuck up about, and there's no reason to be talking about it to begin with. So, for you, sir, on this UFC 64 card, which is the unexhaustibly overhyped fight for you?
Well, it's been hyped up a little bit, but the placement of it is more of the what the fuck. The Chase Sherman and Josh Parisian fight. It's kind of the same thing they fucking did to us last weekend with Jared Vandera versus Rogerio de Lima. And, that fight was a walrus slap fight. That's the best I can give that, and that's probably the best that this will wind up being. And I think Parisian will get a win. Maybe that'll be the most exciting thing if he winds up finishing Sherman. He's 2-4 in the UFC, but putting this in the featured spot, and for the past 2 weeks in a row, heavyweights is fine. Making a heavyweight bout, but some of the worst heavyweights in the division that probably shouldn't have even still been able to stick around in the UFC, like Chase Sherman. Reminds me of Jared Vandera from last week. I mean, and they just fucking fought each other in their last fucking fight. So I don't understand why they keep putting some of the worst fights, at least in the best spots. It's similar to what we talked about earlier in the podcast. You have so many fucking fighters on the roster now. A lot of them aren't that good. You're going to have a lot of bad fights. That's kind of the point in the promotion and the matchmaking and setting up fights. At least give us the best fights at the end on the main card. At least try to give us 3 to 5 fight. I mean, you should have the 5-fight main card at least be somewhat decent, bearable, swallowable. And some of the fights on the main card are. This one's definitely not. I mean, the Parisian probably shouldn't even be in the UFC at this point, in my opinion, and same with Sherman. So this is going to be just a what the fuck fight.
No, I'm absolutely inclined to agree with you here. I've been a Chase Sherman homer since back in the fucking day. I was a fan of his on his first fucking run of the UFC. I was a fan of his during his run in the fucking BKFC for a while. I've been a fan of his since he's been back in the UFC, but he just, for whatever reason, this last time when he came back to the UFC, just has not looked like the Chase Sherman that I've been rooting for years. And for fuck's sake, Josh Parisian is what would have happened if Parker Porter would have been a youth pastor instead of a fighter. So I absolutely agree. As much as I really want to get excited about this, it's got walrus slap fight fucking stamped on both of their fat ass foreheads here. I agree wholeheartedly that both of you make good points here, but with the fucking ridiculous walrus factor here, I have to give the point for round 2 here to the brother Slowbake on that one. That was absolutely the right call for this one. And I can't say that the fight shouldn't be made, because it's a quote unquote relevant heavyweight unranked fight. Somebody needs to get an O, and then they have an excuse to cut one of them. But why it's in the middle of the fucking main card in the people's co-main event slot, I have no fucking idea. That just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah, I'll gladly concede that point because, to be honest, neither one of those guys are worth their fucking weight to be at this point. I remember a day when Sherman seemed to be worth his weight and then just took an absolute fucking nosedive. Parisian's been hot and cold. Either he does really well or he just doesn't show up. Like the bus never left the fucking station. I can't even say the plane because that motherfucker has never flown.
Yeah, no. So that being said, that will bring us to round 3 here. So back over to the brother Christian to kick things off. So for round 3, we do have ourselves, in my opinion, one of the better co-main events that we have had on any card in recent weeks. Just looking at it, in my opinion, this could absolutely have been a fight night main event card unto itself, but works just as well for me as a co-main event. So in your opinion, sir, with this Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez bout ahead of us for Saturday evening, how do you see this one shaking out in your eyes?
Well, it started off with, mad respect to Neil Magny. This will be his 28th fight in the UFC, right? Putting himself in the record books with that, at least. He's always been a decent fighter in the UFC, like a middle of the pack, not one of the greatest, but, kind of like a gatekeeper kind of guy. Daniel Rodriguez, he's on the rise. Definitely, in my opinion, has good power, good boxing, good striking and ability. He's only lost the one time in the UFC. I kind of feel like he lost the last fight. It was a hell of a fucked up event with 279. It was a short notice fight. He was supposed to get against Kevin Holland, and then everything went to shit. And then a 1-day notice to fight the Leech. I kind of think the Leech got that one, but the judges score how they score it, so he's still got himself a win, keeps it rolling. Magny can give you some problems, and the biggest thing that worries me with this fight is that D-Rod took this a couple weeks after that fight against the Leech. He had said he wanted to take some time, and respect to him. He's a hell of a fucking tough motherfucker. Every time the UFC offers him a fight, he takes it, no matter who it is. But 2 weeks after the one fight, you take this fight, and then he gets the staph infection. They have to push this fight back. How much time has he really been able to be in the gym and train for this fight? Magny's getting on there, really because he's just had a lot of fights. And they're both 35. That's the funniest thing I feel like about the co-main and the main event. Everybody's 35. With the ladies and these two guys. Everybody's 35. That was a little funny and fucked up this week. But so it feels like Magny's getting up there, but it's just all the fights that he's had because they're the same age. I feel like if D-Rod can keep it standing, he's got the advantage, but Magny can give him some trouble. And I just kind of feel like with that fact that maybe D-Rod hasn't been able to train the right way with taking these short notice fights, and he might lose a tough decision to Neil Magny. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this one going. It would be a good fight, potentially the fight of the night, but I feel like Magny will give him some fucking trouble. It's the biggest reason he hasn't had enough time to really get himself in the gym, having the staph infection, having to push everything back. It's the biggest thing worrying me.
Definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense indeed. So that'll bring us back across the octagon, as it were, here to Mr. Golf T. So in this, our newly rescheduled co-main event, because they literally had to remake the entirety of the fucking top of this card for us not that long ago. In this newly reformed co-main event in one Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez, how do you see this one shaking out, sir?
So Christian does make some pretty good solid points there, which perfectly all right with. Neil Magny, definitely got a lot of time on his clock. That's for sure. I mean, how many fucking fights he's been in? He's fought some fucking big name fighters. Everybody from fucking Ruthless Robbie Lawler to fucking you name it. He's fighting them in the welterweight division. With that kind of time on your clock also comes a lot of damage on the clock. Rodriguez not been in the UFC nearly as long, and to the point of taking a lot of short notice fights. We can't forget that he used to train with Cowboy. There's a fucking reason why he takes short notice fights. That's that same fucking mentality. like-minded individuals generally stick together when it comes to shit like that. So it's not a surprise. And now with the staph infection coming in, that is a fucking small concern. I won't say a great concern because you can still train with a staph infection. You just can't be in the gym. So guaranteed you he was still fucking training on all the fucking antibiotics and everything that they had him on. Guaranteed you. Does that worry me about him? No. The dude has been progressively getting better fight after fight after fight. And Magny has stayed about the same, which to me, that's a scary fucking thought because that tells me he's probably getting to that point in his career where he's going to take that downslide. And I think this might be the fight to do it because D-Rod, he obviously has something to prove. Yeah, he got away with one against the Leech because I'm in 100% agreement. I think the Leech won that fight without a shadow of a doubt. But the judges called it. He got the fucking W. It is what it is. But yeah, on this one, I'm leaning towards D-Rod on this. I think he's going to come in because he's reminding me of the way the fucking Cowboy came through the ranks, where Cowboy had some hit and miss nights, but then all of a sudden he got that fucking pony going. And I think D-Rod's right in that same area where he's starting to really fucking push her. So I have to go on this one on my gut. Even the crafty old veteran in Neil Magny, I don't think gets it done. I have to give this one D-Rod. In fact, that's the way I'm going to pick my fucking fight on Tapology. So if you guys want to know, there's my pick. It's D-Rod. And I think it's going to end up going to decision because I think the crafty old veteran will make it get that far.
No, I agree. I think you both make some very good points here. I think Neil Magny, despite being the same age as everyone else in the co-main and main events, definitely has the most road miles of anybody in either one of those fights for damn sure. But that being said, part of that I would say is attributed to the fact that D-Rod got such a late start into the game for damn sure, because for having less time than probably any of the other four in either one of those fights, I would say he's probably made the fastest progress for damn sure. That being said, we are absolutely dangerously close to the point where the wheels fall the fuck off on the Neil Magny train. Like, he's not a soup can by any stretch of the imagination, but with the amount of fights that he's been in, the amount of damage he has taken over the years that he's been a professional fighter, Father Time is undefeated for a fucking reason. There comes a point in everyone's life who chooses to fight for a career where you just simply can't fucking do it anymore. No matter how much you want to, no matter how much you think you can, the mind will be willing, but the body will be soft and unable. That being said, I think we're about to that point with Neil Magny here. And much as I agree, I am a little worried about that staph infection potentially having some detrimental effects. I still do think that D-Rod has got what it takes to pull this one out in the end. I agree with both of you. I think it's going to decision. I don't think either one of these dudes finished the other one. I think they're both more than badass enough that this could absolutely be fight of the night. This is going to be won by who's got the biggest fucking heart, in my opinion, who could hang in there and just fucking deal with it and keep control the longest. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be D-Rod. I think Magny is just, we've reached the top of that roller coaster, and I know that there's momentum behind it, but I just don't think it's quite enough. And I think we're about to that throw your hands up and yell "we," because this is where it's supposed to be fun part of his ride. So I've got to give the point for round 3 here to Golf Team. But I will say that was definitely a well played round on both sides. That being said here, that'll bring us to round 4, flipping that proverbial coin as we do again. So Golf Team, this will bring us back over to you. In this newly reformed main event we have got this weekend, the marquee names changed from Bryce Mitchell and Mobsar Evliov to Miranda Rodriguez and Amanda Lemos. And here we are. We are at that point where the rubber meets the road, as it were. Time to push, excuse me, we do this live. Time to push the chips into the center, as it were, and make the call. The main event comes down, number 3 versus number 7. The ladies head up the show. Golf Tee, How do you see this main event playing out?
All right. So this is to be honest, this is one of those ones that I didn't want to call because to be honest, I don't like the fucking fight. I don't like it because of where it's at. As far as where the rankings are, it makes sense that Lemos wants to go after somebody who's ranked above her. Makes complete sense to me. I think the odds makers are off on this one, though. They're giving Mariana Rodriguez too much fucking credit as being a minus 210 favorite over Lemos. And not for any bad reasons. I mean, yes, she's won 4 in a row recently. Her last loss was to the current champ Esparza, which that's a fucking weird anomaly as it is, but that was her last loss. Lemos' last loss was to a much tougher fucking opponent in fucking Andrade 2 fights ago. Other than that, she's only lost one other fight in the UFC, and that was her inaugural fight. She lost by knockout. Other than that, she's been an absolute fucking terror in the women's strawweight division. To be honest, I think she should be ranked higher than Rodriguez, but because of the way the cards fell, she's not anymore. This is where Lemos gets her fucking 3 spot back. I think she takes that 3 away from Rodriguez with fucking ease. I say complete ease. I don't see Rodriguez handing much of a fight to her. Lemos is a bad bitch. I will give her that. As far as the women's strawweight, she is not going to be the champ anytime. I will say that out loud. But she's much better than fucking Mariana Rodriguez. And to be honest, I have to give a little ode to Fresh here. If we look at the pictures, the one with the better abs and Lemos, we got to pick Lemos. Period. But yeah, I'm not as impressed with Mariana Rodriguez. The only impressed thing I have for her is thank you for beating Mackenzie Dern, because fuck that bitch. Other than that, I don't have any faith in her in this fight. I think it's a Lemos all the fucking way.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with some points there. That being said, that brings back across the octagon as it were here. Brother Christian, we have got a main event in the form of Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos. It is a main event. So with that being said, how do you see this event shaking out, sir?
All right, so I somewhat agree with what Golf T said, and the fact that Lemos is a really good fighter. She is really dangerous. She's got that finishing ability, some knockout power, especially for the strawweight division. That's kind of a nice thing to see. But Marina Rodriguez, she's got a lot more experience. Her only loss seems a little bad because Carla Esparza is a boring fighter, but she is the champion right now. However we feel about that, we'll see if that sticks around next week. But the same thing. It's just the more experience for me, and I feel like this will be a somewhat boring decision fight. Lemos has that finishing ability, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a finish, and especially, Lemos get over on what I consider boring fighter. Rodriguez has beat Mackenzie Dern and stuff like that, but she's always going to decisions. She's that kind of fighter. She plays it safe, in my opinion. She doesn't have that same finishing ability. I do, like with my pick, I'm going to go Rodriguez decision because I feel like it's going to be that boring fight. And because at the end of the day, the excitement that we've seen with Lemos lately, she subbed Michelle Watterson, which Watterson, I like her. She's a karate hottie. She's definitely hot, but the fighting aspect gone downhill a little bit. She's on the tail end. Once Lemos got that opportunity to fight a decent fighter with Andrade, she was out like nothing. She got choked out standing up once the fight started. I mean, take that as you will. So we'll see. Like I said, I think the experience trumps it. We'll get a boring fight. That's why, like you said, it is a main event. There's nothing to be thrilled over or excited about. I would love to see Lemos get a finish and surprise us, shake things up in the strawweight division. But I see it staying muddy and Rodriguez getting a boring decision. And then we'll have that situation that if Carla wins the championship somehow over Zhang Weili, we're going to get Carla and Marina Rodriguez next year. If Zhang wins, Rose Namajunas has 2 wins over Zhang Weili. So we might get Rose to bounce back in there over Marina Rodriguez because, like I said, I see it going to a boring decision. She's not title worthy. That's just the honest truth. And I think we're going to see Weili get that win, take the belt back. So this is going to be a muddied picture after a boring main event.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely inclined to agree with you there, and I gotta say, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. I don't necessarily think that Lemos is a better fighter than Rodriguez, but I think she's a stronger fighter. I think she has more capability of winning the fight, but I think you're absolutely right in that Rodriguez is a little bit of a smarter fighter. And she knows how to draw it out more and be a little bit more defensive. And I think you're 100% right here. I think even though Lemos has the punching power, she should be able to put Rodriguez on her ass. I'm inclined to think that Rodriguez is going to be able to draw this one out and stretch it out and end up squeaking out by decision just by being more defensive and a little bit smarter during the fight itself. Not that I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. I just think that I think her fight IQ is just that much incrementally higher than Lemos's is. And I think in a fight this relatively close, that could make a big difference here. So I am inclined to agree. We are going to give the point for round 4 here to Christian. So if you are following along and you are capable of maths, you will know that that means we are all tied up and now must head in to the sudden death winner take all round 5. That being said, if you have been watching the show, you will know that in round 5, we talk about nothing related to the card we are looking forward to this particular weekend. And we are indeed once again going to the wall of Post-its. So with that being said, Christian, you have got the champion's prerogative. I will give you the option here. You can choose when you answer first or second. I will give Golf Tee the option to make the choice on the question you gentlemen were answered. So Christian, would you like to stay in that first position, or would you like to make Golf Tee answer first and sit back and wait to see what you're working with?
I want to sit on back. I'll give Golf Tee the opportunity to answer first on this one.
All right, fair enough. So, Golf Tee. We have got. That's what I thought. Okay. We've got 1 through 9 questions here waiting to be held for this glorious round. Give us a number, sir, and I will give you the question that you gentlemen will be answering.
Oh, 4.
Okay. 4. So, particularly relevant with all of the ridiculous bullshit that played out last weekend and the Twitter war that ensued afterwards. This would be a good one. So, Golf Tee, the question goes to you first, sir. Who is the next big fighter to unretire?
Oh, this is like theory crafting shit. Jesus Christ.
It is. That's why I love the randomness of the Post-its, god damn it.
With the way that shit is getting wild, I would say the next one that unretires would be Jose fucking Aldo. Because we haven't heard anything out of him. He's been pretty quiet, other than he wants to box. But he's retired from MMA. But because he can't get out of his UFC contract, he can't box. So, I think what happens is he comes out of retirement, takes some bullshit fight to finish out his fucking contract so he can go and box. Take a couple easy fights, walk off into the fucking sunset. That's the way I would see that play out. Because, I mean, Right now, yeah, we already know fucking Cejudo's in the testing pool, so it's not like that's a fucking big deal. That bullshit is there. It is what it is. But I think Jose Aldo is more likely to come out of retirement than any other recent big name fighter. Purely so he can get out of his contract.
Right. I can definitely see that for damn sure, especially considering that the UFC made such a big point to talk about how they value Jose Aldo and they're going to release him from his contract, only for us to find out that no, the fuck they didn't. They just let him retire. He's still under contract with UFC. He can't go do MMA. He might be able to do boxing if the event interests Dana enough, but even that, it's a fucking if, and he's still on the UFC leash. So
That's right. How much money can Dana make from his boxing
it's all
outing?
about how valuable is he still to Dana if he decides to even let him do that.
And
So,
to be honest, at this point, that's where I'm seeing a lot of these fucking big name fighters go. As soon as they retire, let me go box. Dude, you guys just know to hang it up. I appreciate you guys knowing when to hang it up out of MMA, but hang it up out of combat sports in general. But still.
yeah, when it's done, be done.
And to be honest, the reason why I say Jose Aldo too, he's still fucking young enough. Like everybody goes, oh, he's had tons of fights. Yeah, he's had tons of fight. He's been fucking at it since he was fucking 17, 18 years old. Fucking
Went pro at 18, yeah.
yeah. So no wonder, like everybody goes, oh, he's so fucking old. No, he's really not. He's fucking younger
spent
than
almost
me.
2 decades as a professional. Yeah, he's gonna have a lot of fights.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I could definitely see him coming back just to get out of his contract. Because to be honest, if I was him and I knew that was the only way out, so I could do what the fuck I wanted, box who I want to box, if I want to jump ship to a different organization, sure, I'll come back, turn down a couple of fights I don't like. So you give me a couple of easy walkout fights and be fucking done, you know?
Interesting. Interesting indeed. Definitely a good answer. So, with that being said, that'll bring us back across the octagon, as it were, in this situation here. So the question comes to you, Brother Christian. Who, in your opinion, is the next big fighter to unretire?
All right, so I firmly will agree with Mike Heck on this one thing with Cejudo. I do not believe that he's unretired or we'll see him fight again until his ass is actually in a cage, doors are locked, and the fight starts. Ref says, "Fight, are you ready? Fight, are you ready?" We get it going. So I'm not going to talk about Cejudo. I think Luke Rockhold, after that fight he had with Paulo Costa, he showed that he still has a little bit of something. He's still constantly every day in the gym training with Jason Perillo, training with Cheeto Vera. You know, he's still got that in him, right? And he could still have some fun fights, some good fights. I feel like after the fight, he was really emotional and everything. He dealt with a lot to get himself to that fight with the training camp and everything. He was dealing with, I think, a staph infection or something with, on his leg going into that fight. Some things that held him back a little bit. And it had been a long time since he'd even fought. I feel like if he gets another good training camp, that was the other thing. Right after the fight, he felt emotional. He probably didn't want to do it again. He felt like maybe he didn't have it in him. But a lot of things were against him. And the way that fans kind of respected his toughness after that fight, how that was a badass fight, how he kind of went out with it. It would be nice to see him come back. I feel like he still would have some fire. And out of a lot of guys that have retired, yeah, he's not as young as Aldo, like TJ said, but I feel like Luke Rockhold could still get some exciting fights going. He showed us he could hang with Paulo Costa. If he gets himself a couple wins, he's still got that name, the ex-champion. It'd be the same situation as Aldo. Either one of them gets back in there, they get a couple wins for whatever reason. If they wanted to do that, they could somehow get their asses back into a title picture in fucking age of almost 40, like we saw with Glover Teixeira. So I would love to see Luke Rockhold get back in the middleweight division. Is one of the weakest in the UFC, so it'd be a big name to get back in there. I just think there's still some fire in there, and maybe he fucking realized how much he's still got a little something, and how much fans and even Dana appreciated it. showed a little respect and appreciation. I mean, that was a badass fucking fight, man. He's still a tough motherfucker. He can hang with a few guys. Maybe not Bo Nickel once he gets up there. Yeah, I know he talked some shit about Bo Nickel leading up to that fight. You wouldn't want that one, but it'd still be fun to see him come in.
Yeah, I can definitely say Rockhold could definitely make things very interesting indeed. I think at least for me, the difference in these two here comes down to just the fight that both of them went out on. If you look at the fight against Costa, yeah, Rockhold shows that he's got fucking crazy heart and he's got grit that you'll never fucking break. But Costa's number 7, and I think that's probably about right for Costa's ranking. And realistically, though he looked decent, Luke didn't win that fight. And Luke's one of those guys that said several times that if he can't get the belt, then he has no fucking interest in doing it. And I think that that's why he took that Costa fight, is because I think he overlooked him and thought that he really could just steamroll Costa and that would be his ticket to getting back to the belt. And I feel like when it didn't go that way, we saw it click in Luke's head in real time. And I feel like I agree. A lot of the times when we see a microphone put in front of a fighter's face, once that fight is over, that adrenaline dump turns their brain into mashed potatoes. But I feel like this might be one of those honest moments when he looked at Joe Rogan and said, I'm old as fuck and I can't do this anymore. I don't think that was adrenaline. I think that was 100% honesty. I think Luke gave everything he had to make it to the end of that fight and barely got there because it was 3 rounds. And as much as I'm a fan of what Luke has done, I don't know that that would look good on him coming back, because I don't know who they would be able to give him that he would be able to style on, that everybody wouldn't be able to just laugh at immediately. When then you look at
Kelvin Gastelum. That's
yeah,
one.
but who
name.
gives a fuck about Kelvin Gastelum at this point, though? Really?
So you said you couldn't think of somebody. There was a
yeah, but I mean, if you just look at the other side of that coin, though, if you look at
his
Jose
ass
Aldo,
is still ranked. That's the only
look at
reason.
Jose's last loss, though. Look at the one that Jose went out on against Merab Dvalishvili, arguably the number 2 at worst in the division. In my opinion, probably really the number 1 contender in the division right now, only because his fucking Yankoff buddy is holding the fucking strap at the moment. That loss, to me, didn't feel like a loss. And a lot of people, journalists and fans alike, did not agree that that was a loss to begin with. But then we found out after the fact that Jose's coach basically used that loss as an excuse to talk him into retiring. This wasn't a situation where we saw Merab beat Jose literally bloody and Jose had to smear his blood to get a single point at the last minute in the last fucking round. You know, this was a situation where he stuffed 15 of 17 takedowns from arguably the machine of takedowns in that division and looked pretty goddamn good doing it. So I agree. Rockhold definitely could have some fun fights, but in terms of which one would be the better on retirement, I gotta go with Golf T and the Jose Aldo here. That would absolutely get my vote for damn sure. That being said, hats off to both of you gentlemen. Both great answers, great competition, much appreciated both of you for stepping up on short notice, as it were, here on both sides of this coin. That being said, that is all we've got for this particular episode here. So first and foremost, links for everyone involved in the show's social medias and good infos are all down in the doobly-doo. If you like what we get up to around here, please make sure you are subscribed on whatever platform you are consuming this on and make sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss a single episode. If you like what we get up to around here, share an episode with a friend. It helps us out. If you really like what we get up to around here, patreon.com/ImNoJoe. For as little as $1 a month, you get your name as a thank you in the end of every single broadcast on this channel, and you get access to unaired and literally unairable behind the scenes shenanigans that we legally had to put behind a paywall, shit that I can't even describe to you. It's so just, it's worth $1. I'll put it that way. That being said, Thursday nights, 9:30 p.m. Central Time ish, youtube.com/ImNoJoe. We do this live the week after that goes live over on anchor.fm/ImNoJoe. You get that in all audio format, your podcast consumption platform of choice. get the show however you'd like to, share it with a friend. We appreciate you. That being said, if you don't like what we get up to around here, first and foremost, what the fuck are you doing this deep into a podcast you didn't enjoy? Give us a thumbs down and then go fuck yourself. We won't even dispute it. That being said, that's all we've got for this particular episode. So until next time, boys and girls, remember, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything. Yes.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. How do I say goodbye?